I'm also a member of the ARORP Advisory Board with Ms. Gloria and 10 other folks, including a lawyer from the Municipal League, John Wilkerson. He represents most of the cities in Arkansas in that litigation. And we both serve as lawyers for ARORP as well. We're able to do that because we're still all on the same side. There's no conflicts. It's awesome. It is in that capacity as ARORP's lawyer that I've been asked to speak to you today. I've been asked to speak to an audience including those of you in the room, ARORP partners with approved funding and projects underway, as well as, we're doing a video here, prospective applicants who are looking at the ARORP website and thinking about applying for ARORP funding. I've been asked to speak to you about compliance and legal requirements attached to ARORP funding, and the steps that ARORP has taken and will take to ensure that ARORP is a good steward of opioid settlement dollars. We want to ensure that we come as close as we possibly can to achieving ARORP's mission of ending the opioid epidemic in Arkansas. We built ARORP with this goal in mind. This opening slide shows that ARORP was created as a court-supervised qualified settlement fund, a QSF. I'm not going to go into the details of it. You just need to know ARORP is structurally designed to ensure that these funds are used for opioid abatement. Okay? Today I'm going to speak about a few things related to the funding application process, and I will tell you about some steps that ARORP has taken to ensure that settlement funds are used for opioid abatement even after funds are awarded and handed over to approved applicants who then become partners. The first thing that anyone considering applying for ARORP funding should do is read and study the ARORP principles. These are on ARORP's website. Everything's on ARORP's website. The principles are on the website under the About Us link. The ARORP principles are meant to guide both ARORP and ARORP's applicants and partners as we work together to save and restore lives. A few words about some of these principles. I'm not going to read them all to you. Y'all are familiar with them, and they're on the website. But the first principle is unity. This has been our theme from the beginning since we originally filed suit in April of 2018. We brought the counties and cities together. We kept them together all the way to the end. They're together, and they created ARORP together. We have intentionally created this partnership where the counties and cities work together by agreement. And we're also committed to working with the state where that makes sense. Most importantly, ARORP is committed to working together with communities and families through ARORP's partners and the approved projects funded by ARORP. Through you, we continue with our unity, working together to save and restore lives. And ARORP wants you to work together for the same reasons. That's why we refer to those of you in the room as ARORP partners. You're a part of this partnership. It's right there in ARORP principle number 1. The second principle, the practical reality, is that we do not have enough funding, and we will never have enough funding to do everything that every applicant would like to do. We must be good stewards of these funds. Most applications are denied due to this practical reality of the limits on available funding. ARORP must make hard choices, and that is ARORP's job. The third principle, ARORP seeks to fund evidence-based projects. You partners know this. ARORP evaluates funded projects moving forward. Tanisha just told you about those evaluations. ARORP reserves the right to audit every partner's approved project, and so far, I believe they have been auditing all of them. Ongoing funding may be contingent on achieving benchmarks and milestones. If something doesn't work as well as we'd hoped, or it isn't working at all, we may need to take that project in a new direction or end that project. All of these principles are important, but let's jump down to number 9, the shortest. If you are familiar with the ARORP website, especially the Progress tab, then you know that ARORP is very transparent. ARORP is a public entity created by the counties and cities that are public entities. Your applications and the data that you submit as you implement your funded projects, those are public records. Your documents may be linked on the AORP website. Your documents may be subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. Transparency is hard work, you guys, and a lot of people don't like doing it, but it's a good thing for all of us. Transparency allows AORP to promote and cross-promote what you AORP partners are doing in your communities. Transparency allows AORP and all of you partners to see where we're doing well and where we need to do more or do something better. Transparency keeps AORP accountable, but also it allows us to tell the story of our collective recovery from the opioid epidemic in communities and families across Arkansas. The second thing anyone considering applying for funding from AORP should do is read and study the AORP funding guidelines. There are 8 of them. They're on this slide. These are listed under the Funding Opportunities tab on AORP's website. The funding guidelines are directed to applicants seeking to become AORP partners. Applicants should understand that these funding guidelines are enforced. Funding guidelines include many of the goals and requirements that AORP looks for in a proposed opioid abatement project. In that way, like the AORP principles that we just discussed, the AORP funding guidelines they serve as a guide to both AORP itself and to AORP's applicants and partners as we work together to save and restore lives. It is worth noting that many of the AORP principles are also reflected in the funding guidelines. Evidence-based programs, the opioid nexus, data and benchmarks and milestones for evaluating the effectiveness of projects underway. These guidelines are also where you find the sustainability requirement. Note that AORP requires outcome-related data about approved projects. Again, your quarterly reporting that you already heard about. Note that funding may be contingent on achieving benchmarks and milestones. As you partners know, AORP does not hand out cash with no strings attached. Third thing anyone who wishes to apply for AORP funding should do is read and study the funding process link under the Progress tab of AORP's website. This slide's not about that. I'll get to this slide in a minute. Under the funding process link, you will find loads of details and information that are helpful to understand the AORP application process. The Help Applying link under the Progress tab is also very helpful and includes FAQs, such as the materials you need to submit for a property purchase or a property construction or a remodel. In sum, if you are considering applying to AORP for funding, carefully study the AORP website. Everything you need to know is there. One final thing for prospective AORP applicants to keep in mind, and this is very important to understand. Nobody is entitled to this funding. Nobody. Not even counties and cities, even though it's technically their money, or it was until they put it in AORP. Most proposed projects are denied, and the reasons for denial are always explained. To receive full approval and funding, a proposed project must be approved by everyone on this here slide. The county judges and mayors in the jurisdictions that are going to be served, they have veto power on the front end before you even submit your application. If you can't get their signatures, you can't even apply. They got to approve it on the front end. It's in their community. They might know you. And generally, they're going to be supportive because they want resources in their communities. But if they have a reason why they're not supportive of a particular project, they can say, no, I'm not going to sign that. It's over. It doesn't even come to AORP. Or if it does without that signature, AORP says, no signature. Can't be approved. The AORP director has to recommend approval. Then it goes to the AORP advisory board. They must unanimously recommend approval. Then it goes to the AAC director, Chris, who you heard from, and the Municipal League director, Mark Hayes. They have to agree because there's only 2 of them, so they can't get a majority without unanimity. They both agree. Then it goes to the QSF administrator, who applies the law and makes sure it's compliant, just like John and I do earlier in the process. And assuming the QSF administrator approves, the QSF administrator cuts the check. If anybody in that list says no, it doesn't get approved. All right, now I'd like to tell you about some of the steps AORP takes when funding projects to ensure that AORP is a good steward of these funds. I'm now speaking directly to AORP partners, you heroes in the room who have secured approved projects and are already out there saving and restoring lives. But prospective applicants should also stay tuned because these issues may be of interest to you if you become an AORP partner. The first thing every AORP partner should know and I went one too far. There we go. Should know and understand is that when your proposal is approved and you become a partner and you receive that funding, your funding application that you submitted to get that funding is a contract by law. Contract. You have agreed to pursue a project using AORP funding, and AORP has agreed to provide that funding. It's a classic contract with agreement and consideration and mutual obligations for the parties to the contract. AORP performs its contractual obligation by giving them that money, and the partner performs its contractual obligation by providing whatever service they've agreed to provide with that money. It's very simple and straightforward. If a partner fails to provide the services as agreed in the funding application, which is a contract, AORP can take legal action against that partner for breach of contract. It would be breach of contract at best, and it could be fraud or theft at worst, but it's always going to be breach of contract if for any reason the partner fails to provide the services agreed to in the application. Just know, AORP can seek a legal remedy in the courts if a partner fails to do as promised in the partner's application, and that applies to all partners. Second thing every AORP partner should know and understand: to supplement the contractual nature of all of these projects, for some projects, AORP also requires the partner to sign a promissory note, which is just another contract, but is one that I draft instead of the partner. And the promissory note, the way these work, we typically do these in projects where you get all the money up front and you're promising to do something for the long term, some number of years. You build something, you're going to provide beds, something like that. So we'll frame the promissory note so that it converts the funding award from a loan that must be repaid with money into a gift that doesn't have to be repaid with money over time. Here's how this works. We'll use an example of a project, say 20 beds. Going to open it up, $500,000 to open up 20 beds. Partner agrees they're going to do that and make those beds available for folks with addiction, with an emphasis on opioid addiction, for 5 years at least, right? The way it works is, if they get off and running and they do a good job, after 1 year, $100,000 of that $500,000 converts into a gift. They don't ever have to pay it back. After 2 years, another $100,000 converts. They don't ever have to pay it back. They get all the way to the end. They do 5 years as agreed. The whole thing converts into a gift. The promissory note is satisfied. No money is owed back. And that's it. But if at any point in that 5 years, the partner stops doing what was agreed, then under the promissory note, AORP can file suit in court and seek a judgment and collection on whatever amount remains. So if they fall off, after 2 years, they owe $300,000. The $200,000 convert to a gift, and it gives the partner an option, in theory, of always sort of buying out their contractual obligation if they want to. But they have to buy that out by repaying all the money. So probably nobody's ever going to want to do that. But it is technically an option. If somebody hits the lottery or something and you need to close your shop or whatever, you can do that. We're going to calculate how much you owe to do that, and we could do that. We would hope that everybody just goes on and provides the services for the years, because that's what we're trying to do here. Third thing AORP partners should know and understand, the second half of this slide there that says mortgages. In some cases, AORP also requires a partner to sign a mortgage, along with the promissory note and their application. So now we got 3 contracts on this kind of project, right? We've learned how to do construction mortgages and regular mortgages. And filing a mortgage on a partner's property gives ARORP a high priority security interest in the underlying real property in the event of a breach of the promissory note, which would also constitute a breach of the mortgage. The promissory note is an exhibit to the mortgage in every case. So it's really just a way of putting the promissory note on the property. This secures the return of ARORP funding that has already been awarded in the event of a breach. It even allows ARORP to foreclose on a property if necessary to secure repayment of the funds. It works just like a mortgage for a home, just like your home loans, except that the partner can satisfy the mortgage by performing the service over time rather than paying monthly payments plus interest the way you do with your home loan. But if you don't, it operates just like a home loan, and if you haven't made your payment, you haven't paid it off, you owe everything, and foreclosure is an option. Hope we never have to do that, but we set it up just in case because we're really trying to do everything we can to be good stewards of these funds. I don't have any more slides, but the fourth thing that every ARORP partner should know and understand, and I'm telling you about this in the full spirit of transparency and partnership, is that ARORP has been contacted by the FBI because the FBI wants to make sure that ARORP is not defrauded by anyone. There's a lot of money flowing all over the country. They've been contacting everybody, not just ARORP. When the FBI reached out, we immediately recognized the opportunity to establish a good relationship with the FBI, and because the FBI and ARORP share the same goals here. You know, they could be a partner if we needed their help on something. The FBI has evaluated ARORP's program. We talked to them in detail and told them all about the stuff I've talked about here today and more. And they essentially endorsed ARORP's entire program and how we're doing and all these steps we're taking and everything we're doing to ensure good stewardship of the funds and prevent fraud. In fact, the FBI asked for ARORP's permission to use some of what the FBI learned from ARORP to assist other governments around the country in handling their opioid settlement money. ARORP's relationship with the FBI is so great that earlier this year, ARORP Deputy Director Tanisha Barnes and I attended the FBI Citizens Academy, and we graduated from it. We're practically FBI agents. Practically. We're not FBI. We're not. Okay. We're not. But we are friends with the FBI. We know they're a phone call away if needed for any reason. I am pleased to report that ARORP has not found it necessary to call the FBI about any approved partners. That's awesome. That's partly because y'all are awesome, and it's partly because we're really good at vetting. I cannot say, unfortunately, I cannot say the same about the entire universe of ARORP applicants. There has been a phone call or two based on applications from people who aren't in this room because they were not approved. That's good news for all of us because we don't lose abatement funding to fraud. It's only bad news for the would-be fraudsters. So don't be a would-be fraudster. You will not succeed. You won't even get the money to begin with, and you might get contacted by the FBI. Here's the bottom line, folks. We hope we don't have to deploy these legal tools that we have developed and these measures we've implemented to ensure good stewardship of these funds. But if anybody tries to defraud ARORP or tries to take the money and run, ARORP will lawyer up, ARORP will FBI up, ARORP will take legal action in the courts to retrieve that money. Even if it means securing a judgment against someone, foreclosing on their property, or anything else necessary to correct an unfortunate situation like that. Okay, deep breath. I've said what I was asked to say. I hope it was helpful for all the ARORP applicants and partners who seek to join ARORP's mission of abating the opioid epidemic and saving and restoring lives. And I hope it put the fear of God and the FBI and the courts into anyone who would apply for ARORP funding with greed or fraud in their heart. I would like to say thank you to every ARORP partner, everyone in the room today, everyone you represent, for doing what you do. Thank you for everything you do to help the least of us recover from the opioid epidemic in communities all over Arkansas. We are grateful for all of you. We are grateful for this growing partnership. We're grateful for the lives we are saving and restoring together. We love you, and we sincerely hope that ARORP never has to sue any of you. I'm happy to take any questions if I have time remaining, which I believe I do.
You do have time. Any questions? Hearing none, call it.
Great job.
Thank you.